So it's kind of overgrown now, but that field over there is where the trek punishment happened. That I think was the Adamasi group's cabin. I don't remember. One of those might have been choices, but I don't remember. But yeah, so there is the giant field where the trek punishment happened. So, that gazebo was not there when I was here as a student. But anyway, so every morning I had to come all the way out here to this house where the, upper level staff lived, and I had to see a nurse because, as you can see, this field is very big. One lap around was a mile, according to them, and I had to walk it 15 times per day. And I had to go all the way out here to get checked by a nurse every day because of how bad the blisters got. And I had to soak my feet in water and Epsom salt. So yeah, and also at that house I would fill with water. So actually that was part of the loop, I believe. Yeah, because I filled my water here somewhere at this house every time around. So yeah, it was all the way pretty much over to Ada Amasi's cabin. It was a big loop, like big, 15 miles a day. And staff actually did a thing that nearly killed me, or it could have killed me. It was pretty bad. So let me pull it out. I have this is not the same Nalgene that I had back then. I had a Nalgene bottle just like this that was 32 ounces, and after every single round I had to drink. They were trying to force me to drink an entire one of these. So as you can probably imagine, I was really struggling. I could not manage it. It was bad. I was getting so sick. And at one point, I actually wet myself, worse yet, in front of a male staffer from the boys' side who happened to come over. Because usually there was like one staff member who would monitor you and one peer from your group, but they would stand like in the middle of the field. They just make sure you weren't cutting corners, and you'd probably be on trek longer if you did. And there used to be a privy somewhere over there. And that's what I used. And somewhere around where that gazebo is, that wasn't there when I was there, somewhere in that corner of the field is where, while I was walking those laps, my tent was kept under a tarp. I had to stay in a tent overnight, and a staff member stayed in another tent, overnight out here with me while I was on the trek punishment. And every night, I had to read a topic, just like campfires up the hill. Everything else I had to carry, like my cooking gear. I had to stop and cook meals over a campfire. I had to set up a campfire and cook. So I'm sure you can imagine how hard it was to do 15 laps, cook my own meals, carry all my, everything, all my gear for, what I needed to live during that week on my back while I walked. I also had to carry a gallon of water for putting out the fire. And yes, I carried that while walking the 15 laps. That power line was not there when I was there either. That's new. So after I wet myself in front of the male staff person, they cut down my water requirement to 16 ounces, half of it instead of a full. But that was still like making me sick. Not as bad as the 32 ounces, but pretty sick. They weren't replacing electrolytes. This was June. This was right after my 17th birthday when they put me on this punishment. Finally, since I wasn't quite as sick on, half an Nalgene bottle every time around, I, if you can see that tuft of trees kind of near that gazebo, I pretty sure I know there was like an island of trees back in the day when I was here, and that might be it. Somewhere around that, you know, since that was part of the loop, I actually went behind that, and then I made a bolt for the woods. You know, I ran, and you know, since the staff member and peer were somewhere in the middle of this field, and I was pretty fast. I used to be a fast runner before, you know, my POTS symptoms got so bad that I ended up in a wheelchair and all that. But yeah, I ran away into the woods. I actually managed to stay hidden for quite a while. You know, I could hear people looking for me. I think the reason that nobody found me was that I was wearing my rain gear because, you know, it was, I think, raining occasionally that day. And that protected me from, you know, anything, you know, because I was laying down because I felt so sick from being forced to drink so much water without, you know, replacing electrolytes. So yeah, I could hear them saying, "Come out, PM. There's nowhere to go." You know, oh yeah, and they called us by our initials instead of our names, when, especially if other people could be around that were not in our group. And we weren't supposed to notice or mix with other groups or talk to other groups, whatever. It was called group mixing, and we could get campsited, that punishment for it. Yeah, so I remember them looking for me. I could hear them, and I found out later when they were looking for me, they saw a copperhead snake. There were a couple things, I don't know. I was fine. I grew up in North Georgia. I was used to the woods. I loved exploring the woods as a kid. It was my happy place and one of the places where I felt safe. But yeah, my plan, what I wanted to do was stay in the woods overnight, or not overnight, until it got close to dark. And then I was gonna try to make a bolt up the road, you know, try to run away that way. But I was on my period. I also don't like peeing in the woods. I'm bad at it. I have never managed to successfully pee without peeing on stuff I don't want to pee on, my clothes. So I tried to sneak out of the woods and go to the privy that used to be around where those buildings are. Yeah, and that is when I was found. I know now the name of the staff member that found me. It was Miss Howell. She was driving a red sports car, and yeah, I'm pretty sure, well, no, I'm not gonna say that. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, I was found, and therefore that night I was under guard. I actually had to sleep inside one half of what I think was Adamacy's cabin or Choices or something. Yeah, there was one half they weren't, I guess, using consistently, or maybe they, I don't know. It looked like a schoolhouse or kitchen or something. I don't know. So I was in there overnight with two different staff on either side of me with their sleeping bags on either side of me, guarding me overnight to make sure I couldn't run away. And then the next day I was transferred to New Beginnings. We walked, I can't remember, no, we walked to the front office, which is way down there, because that's the house where there were some upper level staff there. That's the schoolhouse. The thing way down there is the shower house and the front office, or can't remember. Yeah, we had to walk all the way down to the front office, and Miss Leach said, "Oh, did nobody told you? You're going to New Beginnings." To be honest, it was a godsend. Three Springs New Beginnings was still very much abuse, but on the other hand, it was slightly more livable abuse. I could be friends with my peers. There were a few good staff. Yeah, because I got to a point where I just snapped. I tried running away repeatedly. That's why, you know, I was told on my 17th birthday here that I was too bad to have a birthday cake like the other girls. Because I was working towards a town visit for my birthday to get off campus, get away from the abuse, get away from the bullying. And I was trying to do everything right. you know, and it seemed like I was doing well, you know, because like even though I never advanced beyond the level above the buddy level, yeah, basically the orientation thing, you know, I didn't advance very far in the program, but you know, I was starting to gain level, you know, within levels there were like stages or whatever that we had to earn, and there were a couple I earned, including like being allowed to touch cleaning stuff, like, because yeah, when we were on dining hall duty, we had to, you know, do stuff, cleaning, mopping, whatever. I was allowed to touch the cleaners, and that was one of the things I earned. Can't remember what else. But yeah, so I thought I was doing everything right. I was trying so hard. I was focused on just getting out for just even briefly, so just there would be a brief reprieve from the bullying, the abuse, you know, being starved, all that stuff, and, you know, forced into all this labor, you know, physical labor with not enough calories. And they said no, and that was the point where I snapped, because I was like, I can't take the abuse anymore. I can't, you know, because it was coming from both staff and peers. And honestly, you know, once again, you know, I've forgiven my peers. I realized it, you know, the staff created that environment where that kind of behavior was necessary for upper levels, you know, to be able to graduate, you know, move up levels and get out of here, you know. But, you know, the three of us, I think, that went through the worst bullying were me, KJ, and JB. And out of the three of us, I'm the only one who's still alive. And yeah, that shows you how bad it was. And there's so many people that are dead now who were here as students, you know, that just could not handle the trauma memories, you know, escaped via suicide or drug overdose. And yeah, I'm sad that I don't think the staff will ever face any responsibility for it.